Hello! In this tutorial, I'll show you how to recreate Maelstrom's Square4 Wavetable inside of Harmor. I'll be going over traditional Riddim Drum layouts, and I'll be sharing ideas on how to use Harmor's many unique features to your advantage. Timestamps are below, so if you need to skip to any specific part, or skip over any parts that you already know, then do that. With that all out of the way, I hope you learned something, and I hope you enjoy. Really quickly, what even is Square4? Well, Square4 is just a square wavetable with 4 unisons. So, if we take this default Harmor instance and change the wavetable over to a square, and then add 4 unison, boom, you have a Square4. If you want a more authentic sound, turn the phase all the way to the center and turn the pan all the way down, because the traditional grain table isn't actually stereo at all. But if you find how it's a little stereo cool, then keep that. Okay, well, now I just have a sustained Square4 sound. What do I do with it? Now, what you could do if you were a chump is just make an external volume automation, but there's actually a fancier and easier way to do that. Enter the phaser. I love phasers to death, but you might be asking, that's not a volume automation. Turn the width all the way down and turn the speed around to here, where it says 4, 2, or 1, at which point I would make 3 straight automations for. These will be your quarter notes, 8th note, and 16th note, respectively. And then boom, that's a volume automation. It functions kind of like a very quick bandpass filter, shifting over the entire frequency spectrum. And you have tons of different settings here of how narrow those peaks can be. You can even do a custom peak if you want to. So now that I've explained why the phaser is simply better, let's go out of there and go into the effects tab. I personally have had a lot of fun turning the distortion to classic and just not changing anything. This is just parallel distortion, and it adds a cool little flavor to your sound. Next to the delay, there's really no one thing that you could do for the delay. You can make a slapback delay by making the delay times 16th notes, and then turning the feedback all the way down. You can make a more metallic sound by turning the feedback up and turning the delay time down even more. I don't want to give you a solution for this because I want you to do it yourself. I want you to experiment and learn what sounds good on this sound. And if you already know, then good. And for the reverb, I know I literally just told you not to copy it, but you know how to do reverb, you know how this works. And now that we've done all this, feel free to experiment. I've given you a very basic Square4 sound, and I would highly recommend experimenting and finding any way to make your sound unique. You can change the phase a little bit, you can change the pitch offset, you can change the unison up to 8 if you want, you can change the phaser type. Have fun and experiment. Do whatever, really. I won't be showing this because I want you to do it yourself, but the blur mode is actually really fun, and I actually use it a little bit in the demo at the end of the video. Okay, so you're happy with your bass. That's good. Good job, you did that. You hopefully didn't copy me. Now let's learn about the incredibly easy, like seriously so easy, Riddim drum structures. Okay, so for drums, if you're doing a Square4 sound, I'd highly recommend getting a hip-hop kick or something without a whole lot of treble. In this case, one of my good friends Roy gave me some of his, and no, you can't have them. But yeah, just place them in a straight, half note, whatever. It's Riddim, you don't gotta be really innovative or anything. And then for the clap, you have a lot of different options. You can do things with a really long tail, you can do things that are really short, like an 808 clap. Just place these on every other kick. And maybe if you're a nerd who makes hip-hop and are comfortable making offbeats, you can place one on an offbeat as well. Just be aware of how this might clash with your Square4 bass's flow. And then for the hi-hats, just place one on every 4th. Again, it's Square4, you don't gotta be innovative at all. Okay, and that's it, we're done. No, I'm just kidding. Now it's time to place accent notes. There are very few songs that I've heard that are done at this point that need these accent notes to add to the bouncy feel or to add a more complex and interesting rhythm to the drum structure. There's really no rule as to how to make accent notes, but I'd recommend experimenting with 8th and 16th notes on your kicks, adding the offbeat clap that I mentioned earlier, adding little hang sections in your hi-hats towards the beginning of a phrase that help bring tension as you go into the section. And that's really about it. Again, this is all on you to figure out how to do. I'm not going to teach you everything because there is no one rule. This is just a couple things that I suggest. Alright, and if you're happy with your drums, that's pretty much all you have to do. And like if you're really down later, you can add a variation or two, maybe in the verse or something, but you don't honestly have to. Okay, so this section is just going to be a lightning round of anything I can think of. There's no real order to any of these are just things you should consider. Firstly, add a disperser. I can't express how much of a difference this makes, just do it. And if you can't afford a disperser, which I totally understand, there's 2 free alternatives. One being M Freeform Phase, which I don't really have a whole lot of experience with, but I've heard it's pretty good. And second, assuming you're using FL Studio, which, you know, this video is about Harmor, I would assume so. It's not even a phase plugin, it's actually multiband delay. I won't go too much in detail, but I explain it in this video here in the top right or on screen right now. 2. Mess around with the internal settings. You're not done with Harmor. The entire reason that you're using Harmor is because there's a whole lot of bells and whistles, so go find them. Like I said earlier, there's the blur mode, which is kind of hard to describe, but it kind of just makes your sound longer, kind of like a reverb, but without the diffusion. If you go to the resonance styles dropdown and select noise, the resonance knob actually becomes sort of like a dry wet knob of really cool digital bleeps and whatnot. I found this to be really cool for a fake out, but you could also just make an entire drop out of this if you wanted to. Remember why we're using Harmor. You made Square4 on your own, which gives you such an incredible opportunity to shape it into whatever you want it to be. Go ahead and automate the pitch difference between each voice. Automate the amount of voices. This is your Square4 to mess around with. I don't even know what to call this, but I'm assuming your Square4 patch is just one pattern. And I don't know if you noticed, but the phase of the unison restarts on every single note. So you can get really creative with chopping the pattern up and making the pattern start at really weird times, which will restart the unison phase. And of course, last but not least, use sound design techniques that you already do as a habit on other sounds. This is your song, so make it yours. Okay, that should be everything. Hopefully in this video you actually learned something. I really tried to hammer home the point that you should be doing it yourself and that you should be learning yourself. Since a lot of tutorials nowadays are just, hey, copy my reason patch, where that doesn't actually teach you anything, and hopefully you can use this video to make something unique. And if you do make anything with this video, please by all means send it to me on Twitter. If you have my Discord, send it to me there. Thank you so much for watching. And yeah, with what I showed you today, you should have something like this.